Everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Know Your Pharmacist Livestream. I'm your host, Dr. Joaquin Acosta, CEO of Pharmtrue, and today we have a jam-packed show lined up for you guys. In our Pharmacist Frontline segment, we're going to be diving into the world of flu shots, as you guys already know, exploring the perfect time to get vaccinated and how it can make a difference in your winter wellness. Then, in Tech Talk, we'll uncover the groundbreaking innovation of pain-free self-administered medicines. Interesting. Imagine a world where taking your medication is as simple and painless as a click of a button. Our Enlightenment Hour, sponsored by the Trichome Alliance, will take you on a journey through the mind. Today, we're going to explore the power of metacognitive mindset change and what exactly that means. We're going to discuss how understanding your own mindsets can actually transform your way of life in unexpected ways using some evidence-supported research to show you. In the Herbal Wellness Corner, sponsored by High Horse, we're going to discuss the impact of certain medical laws, quote-unquote cannabis, on opioid overdose rates, shedding the light on a critical issue that affects many lives. Community Spotlight, we're going to be shining on the NMSU students returning to class this week. Welcome back, Aggies. And finally, in our Men's Health Minute, we're going to dive into the gender gap in health, giving you guys a little bit of the men's health opportunities to re-update that checklist, okay? So again, big thank you to our incredible sponsors, Pharmtrue, High Horse, Trichome Alliance, and Vado Speedway Park, who make the show possible. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and let's embark on a journey of knowledge, wellness, and community, guys. Cool. This is Know Your Pharmacist. We are just getting started. Let's check this thing out. Perfect time to get a flu shot. When does everybody get their flu shots? I will take that info if you have it. I'm curious to see what everybody thinks. Flu shots have been around for about at least the last 60 years, guys, in the United States, annually. Recommendation applying for all Americans over 6 months. Guys, pharmacies are getting flu shots already, so it's in the wheelhouse to get one, but, when is the perfect time to get a flu shot? That is the question. So again, what do you guys think if you are listening? What time of year do you get your flu shot? August, September, October, November, December. If you get one, I guess this is also under the assumption that, yes, you may get an annual flu shot, or maybe you don't. Well, we all know that, this year, flu, COVID, and RSV are definitely of concern. That trifecta, again, talking about flu shot timing and how that, should look or is going to look for people. I think it's just important to know, okay, according to the CDC, the best time for people to show up for an injection is almost now. They say the sooner the better. So, the sooner there is flu shots available, the better. Interestingly enough, no sooner than September, ideally no later than the end of October. So if it's early enough to talk about it, it's available, it's early enough to get it. The flu can last up to next May, this year's flu season. So that's going to be 2023 into 2024. Again, current CDC guidelines got that September-October window for the flu shots. I think down here in our region, where obviously we are a little bit warmer, maybe people assume that you want to go a little bit deeper into that season. And I totally understand that. But at the same time, because travel is a thing and airplanes and viruses can make their way around, as we know they do, there's no reason not to get it early, because if you see an uptick in one state, it's not too long until you see an uptick in the next state. Makes sense? We're talking about flu shot timing. And some people are really, 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 focused on, I'll get it in October. That's when I'm going to get it. Or whatever that may be. And I totally understand. As a healthcare provider, of course, if it's available and you can get it, get it. But that perfect window is between September, no later than October. So can you get it too early, right? Level of antibodies go up after getting the vaccine, right? It takes 2 weeks to build the full immunity. Well, they do start ticking downwards after a couple of weeks. I mean, it's not like a lot, but it could be 6% waning to 18% over an average of studies that's reported by about 3 or so months. So 6 to 18% maybe you will lose throughout about 90 days after the flu shot of, waning protection. Well, it's pretty darn good bet to take all of that 84% if you're going to be looking at, you lose all 16% throughout a longer period of time. And it just depends on what time frame, somebody considers important. And here we know our cold season, it's very cold, obviously, deep in January. So 3 months before January, conservatively, you're in the September, October window. And after that, everybody's already went to school, they've traveled, they've hit their Christmas, they've come back, they're back in school. On top of the flu shot, herd immunity that should be somehow generated, a little bit, you got that. And, January is not that bad of a time to be maybe 6% down because you've already probably built some sort of antibody responses throughout the entire cold season up to that point. So, where it's how many people have gotten their flu shot in August? I honestly typically 2, just because it's available and it's a lot, easier to just get it over with instead of waiting. And I think as a healthcare provider, I'd rather just say, I got it. Of course, that's why I'm offering it. So every year I always get it as soon as pharmacy gets it. It's not a big deal, but I know everybody has their specific timing, guys. Again, no later than October, really, by the CDC rules. No sooner than September, according to the CDC. However, they also advocate for, if you are available and the time is now, do it now. So it's kind of a wishy-washy. Either way, it's coming up. It's that time of year. Cool. So, all right, let's keep talking about shots, guys. Pain-free self-administered medicines. Does anybody know what the heck that means? Well, there's a new technology here in our Tech Talk that I want to discuss. It is a needle-free solution here. And basically, this company called Nova XS, and it's led by, a young healthcare research person. And she's actually looking, to truly find that way to deliver medication using water pressure without a needle. And obviously the pitch is, right, like, do you like needles? What are the, barrier to getting a medication with a needle? As many as 2 out of 3 children have a fear of needles. 1 in 4 adults have a fear of needles, and 27% of children avoid needle treatments. So again, needle-free technology here, her push on the Nova X solution, Telosis, is that it delivers medication using liquid pressure within 0.3 seconds. So it's a click of a button administration of, medication, and it's like reporting the real-time data to the app and all that good stuff, right? So where you can really get monitoring in situations where there's not much monitoring, like how often did a patient maybe inject their insulin? How do you automate that? Because the insulin pen, you don't have, granted, the utilization over a month's period or maybe a 90-day period. For instance, if you look at the remaining, literal amount of medication after X time, or how long it takes to use. But, there's not it's really hard to get people to sit there and think about every single time of day they administer medication and look at that consistently, because you're going to be logging all the time. And that's interesting because check this stat. In-home medication administration error rates can be as high as 33%. So again, when you're looking at dosage monitoring, treatment schedules, even if you were, dialing up insulin dose and maybe you dialed up the wrong dose and you didn't notice it, that could be a medication error. What other medication errors? Maybe you put the wrong insulin in at the wrong time, or there's a plethora of different reasons that things could happen. But I think this Nova XS company, through their Telosis technology here, they're creating basically injectable technology for insulin syringes, for vaccines, right? For cancer, radiation treatment, all the stuff. So it's very interesting to see what that could actually bring for the future. I definitely want to highlight that. Again, they're looking at 3 problems in the drug delivery process currently. And that's 50% medical treatment adherence rate that causes between $100 and $300 billion of avoidable healthcare costs in the United States annually. So again, by having that real-time data as a healthcare provider, if you can, look at the right time to make the right calls when you're looking at patients' insulin dosing or whatever that may be in a high expensive cancer treatment or an expensive antipsychotic medication treatment or something like that, and you can really look at the administration data from these devices, that really does help to change the world, and make sure that not only that healthcare cost is getting spent correctly, because guys, think about how much an insulin pen costs, right? Like an insulin pen costs hundreds of dollars sometimes for one pen. Maybe a box of insulin pens, generic, you're a couple $100. Brand name stuff, guys, you're talking hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars for these kinds of medications, with, again, limited mechanisms of tracking, barriers to taking, just because injection causes obviously psychological barriers and other factors. So by, making medication administration theoretically pain-free, this is pretty cool from Telosis for sure. And I think in the Tech Talk, this is one of those that I definitely want to highlight. I'm excited to see what, physical needle-free injection device, comes to fruition out in the future. As a supplier, all these big companies, Eli Lilly, I guarantee you, right, Novartis, these guys are going to be looking at how do we incorporate that. How eventually someday it's going to be hilarious, because I'm sure we're going to be like, I remember when they used to use needles to administer medicine. How old school to put a stainless steel rod in your arm. That's going to change. The days are changing. May not happen today or tomorrow by any means, but that one's cool. Obviously, guys, it's flu shot time. It's RSV shot time for those of you that are 60 and older. The infant one's going to come out soon, 8 months and less. Updated COVID boosters for those who do need it. Talk to your pharmacy. You have more questions. But guys, it's just that time of year, and you will continue to hear about it. Obviously, shingles vaccines, pneumonia vaccines, everything else that is on the vaccine schedule for adults, children. Those are all up for grabs. It could even change the way you administer perhaps IV medications and other things. So very, very interesting there in that little corner of the world, Nova XS, and I'm sure there's going to be other competition if there isn't already. Cool. All right, moving on, guys. Enlightenment hour here. Showing you some cool research here from the American Psychological Association. Talking about metacognition, what does that even mean? Have you guys, listened to me the last kind of couple of weeks here as we've jumped on the Know Your Pharmacist live stream, I've really been kind of trying to dive into the idea of this right mindset and some of this alternative like biohacking stuff here. And where you really do start to look at this is really starting to kind of evaluate the difference between placebo effect and mindset and metacognition and how that all looks. Right? So what sort of research and theory and all that claims out there, because the mindset clearly plays an important role in our body's response to stress. But right, how does somebody do that as a positive way? How do you control that? Right? Can you not? Right? Well, according to this, this big study here, research shows obviously mindsets can be changed quite readily, at least in the short term. For example, mindsets about stress can be altered by simply watching multimedia film clips selectively oriented towards either a stress-free, stress-enhancing, a stress is debilitating mindset or a stress is enhancing mindset. So by literally changing that mindset of, oh, stress, pressure makes diamonds, right? Literally, you can change that by just watching video clips about it. And the studies are there that your mind literally just, it does. There's the power of positive thinking. And if you're exposing yourself to positive content, that actually does help reduce stress. And very interesting to think about in the enlightenment hour here, especially because this is a live stream. I want it to be an informative live stream. I do want to help enhance people's ability to use their own minds. I do want that psychological connection of, hey, well, this is adding value to my life. I'm learning maybe where this could apply. So how do you think about mindset? I think it's an ongoing process for everybody on a personalized level, but everybody has that ability to thus change their mindset or for the positive or for the negative is what we're getting at. And let me show you some of this cool stuff. We had a chart on placebos. And you look at the mind, right? And basically the effects here I'm looking at. So Stanford actually has a mind body lab where they conduct their own research, they compile research. So this is where I'm, pulling this stuff from. So this is Stanford medicine, right? Again, and they're looking at figuring out how the mind in health actually, influences the activities on what we do, right? Whether it's by, isolating effects of our beliefs from the myriad of factors that influence our health, or finding out how to, either compile it and creatively and, address it, right? So creative methods to experimentally manipulate beliefs and expectations and measure objective health outcomes. So again, they had a study here looking at the mind's influence in shaping physiological effects in food consumption. In one study, they had a group of participants drink identical milkshakes, but labeled some of the milkshakes as high calorie and others as low calorie. Again, that participants that consumed the high calorie milkshakes responded physiologically as if they consumed more food, experiencing greater differences in the decrease in their hunger hormone. So the perception, of higher calories, knowing that you put more in your body, decrease your hunger response. Interesting, right? Another one here in 2019, study analyzed participants' genetic risk of obesity and then randomly assigned them to receive either a high risk or a low risk genetic test result, independent of their actual risk. So to test the perceived risk, they compared physiological outcomes within individuals and after being told before and after being told their randomly assigned genetic risk. So they compared again what the human body did after, telling them their perceived risk and before telling them their perceived risk of what the genetic test was going to say about them. So interesting, right? Informing individuals of a high genetic risk on a gene related to, reduced exercise capacity had a self-fulfilling effect on their actual cardiorespiratory fitness in exercise. In other words, people who believe that they were at a greater genetic risk for poor fitness experienced actual declines in their capacity to exercise, right? So, wow, literally your mindset affected the way that you could exercise because you were obviously being told that you were at a genetic risk to have issues exercising. So interesting, right? I mean, how can you influence that in all positive ways? The power of positive thinking, right, everybody? I think you kind of get that. So again, subjective beliefs have literal objective effects on the weight, our body's weight, hormone levels, respiration, other physiological outcomes as well. And literally, right, you can have placebo conditions versus treatment conditions and how that affects. And I'm going to show you this little chart that they have because it was kind of interesting. So right there, theoretical model detailing the biopsychosocial components of the placebo effect. So again, looking at, right, treatment condition, placebo effect, right? Measuring that from the interaction of biological systems, endocrine, nervous, and immune, psychological states, expectations, and attributions. What was this medication or placebo supposed to do for me, etc., right? Price and or even branding of the drug, which again, I've seen that. You know what I mean? You can literally think about some people, for whatever reason it is, so strongly believe that brand name medications are better than generics that they are willing at whatever cost to have the brand. And they are so strongly believing that they paid that much more and they are going to have better health outcomes for it. Interestingly enough, they actually might. But on the flip side, they get a generic and they think they're going to have some sort of, subpar health outcome because they paid a lower price. What does that mean, right? Like, so interesting the way that all can happen. And not only that, but even the messaging around the treatment. And that's where, the power of advertising in drug companies and tobacco companies and these things becomes very particular, because you can literally see on top of that the way things are said and put, especially when it comes out to, the human attraction is to alchemy. It's to these kinds of things. And when it's sold and presented in these ways to have effects and healing and these kinds of things, it's very easy to have people really, believe things that manifest in ways. And how do you evaluate that? Well, again, showing you guys how, Stanford is trying to do that with their mind and body lab, looking at everything there and the forces of how does this affect each other. So they broke it down here into a framework depicting the role of mindset in shaping health. And so looking at what goes into mindset, being influences, right? Are cultural ideas, institutions, social interactions, and conscious choice. Correct equals your mindset. Your mindset is your meaning system around life, right? Expectations, attributions, goals. And what goes into that is, a harmonious relationship with your health. Like your meaningful body system is the framework, the theoretical framework that, Stanford Mind Body Lab is looking at here. How do you change things? How do you look at these points, right? So very cool. Again, mindsets overall, what can they do? How can you harness it? That's where, I think everybody's looking for that answer simultaneously. But again, where they're at now, according to the Stanford Mind and Body Lab research on stress mindset shows that delivering vivid, persuasive, and actionable information about the potentially enhancing effects of stress can establish the mindset that stress can be enhancing and in turn improve health. Similarly, our research on food mindset suggests that altering public health messaging to establish the mindset that healthy foods can be indulgent and delicious may be a more effective route for improving health and motivating healthy behaviors than messaging that harps on the importance of eating healthy, which can inadvertently reinforce a mindset that healthy foods are depriving or disgusting. So where is the self-fulfilling prophecy? Interesting. Again, they found labeling vegetables with tasty and indulgent descriptors led to a 29 to 40% increase in consumption compared to highlighting their health characteristics. Relatedly, their research on exercise mindsets had yielded that several important insights for making physical activity guidelines more effective. So again, showing the power of positive thinking, the power of, to some degree, embracing the suck can actually, you can turn that stress and use it to enhance. So if you think about that, maybe it doesn't hit every single place, but where you really do look in, things like cancer and psychological, therapy in addition to, everything else that's going on, because your outlook on the outcome is obviously truly scientifically, in an unexplainable way, getting you closer to that outcome. And the power of the brand, the power of that placebo effect, and what that can mean is interesting. So harness it, try to think about it. Even by talking about it, by thinking about it, already statistically puts you at that higher level of being able to harness it, because you're already thinking about it and you know the positive benefits of it. So just by listening to that, by those stats, you've already been enhanced. Get it? Got it? All right. So, okay, moving on to the Herbal Wellness Corner, sponsored by High Horse Cannabis Company, guys. I want to talk about a study from 2014 looking at the association between medical cannabis laws and state-level opiate analgesic overdose mortality rates in the United States from 1999 to 2010. So interesting. Primary analysis showed here that medical cannabis law being in states, those states with medical cannabis had 24.8% mean annual opioid overdose mortality rate compared with states without medical cannabis laws. So, wow. And this was by 2010. So we don't even know where the data is at fully now. But again, guys, that is incredible. So where states that had prescription drug monitoring programs, they were like, that didn't change it. That didn't lower it. They were having 3.7% more opioid annual overdoses. So there was a correlation between states having prescription monitoring programs and opioid overdoses, obviously because states are probably, putting a Band-Aid over a giant gaping gunshot wound, right? Laws requiring or allowing pharmacists to request patient identification, states with those laws had 5% increased opioid mortality. So by getting pharmacists more involved, just doing more with opiates, people were taking more opiates. There was more mortality. Oh my gosh, guys. So it's just crazy. So think about that. And for those of you who know what this means or doesn't mean, again, let me break this down. Again, mortality rate is typically expressed in units of deaths per 1,000 individuals per year. So again, 3.5 out of 1,000 people per year in states with prescription drug monitoring programs or states that had laws requiring pharmacists to request patient IDs were having, 5 out of 1,000 people, in that were opioid users overdose, and you were reducing that 24.8% when you had medical cannabis there. So that's probably, so confounded and so, old that it's hard to really create that much traction off of that. But where you look at that is to really start looking at the cases of, let's look at New Mexico in a before and after use case of where our opioid overdose mortality rate goes, right? Let's look at how this may shape out, because yeah, that's very interesting. And does it also feed the idea that, interestingly enough, Big Pharma would be aligned to not want cannabis to thrive? Correct, because there's going to just literally be less opioids in circulation. And we know, cannabis and opioids work together actually in the body to help reduce pain. Cannabis can help, lower opioid doses by 50 to 80% or even more. So it is a big opportunity there. And maybe the opioid, industry is threatened by that or whatever to that degree, but right, it's time for everybody to get over that. And you could really do a big dent in the problem there by expanding upon that research, one, and federally descheduling cannabis, of course, legalizing it. How do opiates even get currently treated, right? People go on Suboxone or buprenorphine naloxone combination, or buprenorphine alone, or methadone, right? Who knows where the methadone clinic is in town? Did you know we have a methadone clinic? Right? Cannabis has better safety profiles than Suboxone, better safety profiles than methadone. People inject Suboxone strips into their veins. Suboxone can be used to cause a high. Suboxone is paid for by all government agencies for anybody experiencing, cannabis, or opioid withdrawals. But Suboxone, at the same time gets snuck into our prison systems to be abused, along with the rest of everything else. So, right, how good is Suboxone? Right? Lowering the risk of dependence to any other psychoactive substance. Cannabis does that better than both methadone and Suboxone. And we don't even have a good amount of data. Again, this study is 2017. Medical cannabis laws had a 23% less hospitalizations related to opioid abuse and 13% less hospitalizations related to opioid pain reliever overdose. So Again, guys, you got, maybe 2.5% of the US population that's truly using medical cannabis right now. That's not a lot. So you can really make some change if you did change that. And it's all just worth being up for consideration. We don't know when, we don't know what, and how that's going to look like, but keep that talking. If you guys do know people that have issues with opiates, things like that, connect them to cannabis to some degree. Let them know. It may be able to help you reduce your opioid doses by 50 to 80%. What other amount of life could you get back by reducing that? Who knows? There's a lot of value. So all worth considering. Capiche? Guys, moving on, community spotlight. Welcome back to New Mexico State University. Students back in action. Guys, I know everybody's moving back in this last weekend. School starts up again on August 16th for classes. So glad that, everybody is back in town and safe. To all our Aggies. Got, football season coming up and all that good stuff. So go Aggies. All our El Paso peeps. I'm sorry, Albuquerque peeps. I'm sorry. I'm truly an Aggie first and foremost. I am an Agbo. I went to UNM as well. Got my doctor of pharmacy from there. But, my heart is with New Mexico State University, guys, of course. So again, welcome back, NMSU. Have a safe and great start to your school year. I wish them all the best. Guys, and the last thing to address here, Men's Health Minute, sponsored by Botto Speedway Park. Talking about closing the gap in gender health, right? I think you guys have heard me already talking about why are men dying before women? Why do we lose why do we lose the race of longevity? Of course, I think we already understand that, yes, men die younger than women. Statistically, there is a gap there. We have plenty of reasons as to what creates that, social reasons, work stress, lack of social networks and supports, behavioral factors, risky behavior, aggression and violence, smoking, nicotine, diet, lack of exercise, lack of routine medical care, even biological factors, right? So where you look at those things, biological factors, genes and chromosomes, how those can vary and affect, your phenotypical expression. How does your body do homeostasis in life, right? How do hormones affect things that are going on in, heart disease or other things? Yes, they can. But, hormones and their place there is still actually being, fully figured out, right? Certain studies put men that take testosterone at a higher risk for heart disease. Certain studies show small amounts of testosterone lowers the risk of heart disease, right? In women, right, that take their estrogen beyond menopause experience increased risk in stroke, heart attack, blood clots, right? So where can those have protective and, restrictive effects on life expectancy? It's very interesting. Where can those change? Well, they can just change everywhere. And how do men influence their best, numbers there? Number one, according to Harvard University, avoid tobacco in all its forms. Number two, eating more healthful foods and fewer harmful foods. More whole grains, fruits, vegetables, legumes, fish, low or non-fat dairy options, nuts and seeds. Less red meat, whole milk, dairy products, poultry skin, high sodium, salty, processed foods, sweet, sugary drinks, refined carbs. I feel attacked. Again, exercise regularly, including at least 30 minutes of moderate activity nearly every day. Exercise for strength. Stay lean. If you choose to drink, this is for guys, limiting yourself to 2 drinks a day. Reducing stress, getting sleep. avoiding risky behaviors, reduce exposure to toxins, radiation. Radiation includes sunlight. Everybody, UV, I think, gets overlooked sometimes. So sunscreen, guys, and medical checkups regularly, not just once you finally retire. Again, last thing there, seeking joy and sharing it with others, laughter, great medicine, fun, and optimism improve health as well as happiness. Again, guys, talked about that a little bit. So again, making those changes steadily, reasonably, you will continue to enjoy a healthier lifestyle each and every single day. So think about that on a very mindful level. Hope today's Monday stream was great, guys. Sorry about the late start, but sometimes, Monday's a crazy day, so we just had to have a little bit of a delay, and I do apologize. But it's been a good show. Glad we got the info out. We will catch y'all tomorrow, and hope everybody has a great night.